When most of us think about polio, we probably think of it as, well, a disease from the history books, right? We remember the fear, we celebrate the vaccine, and we pretty much consider the battle won. But what if I told you that story isn't quite finished? In fact, the very vaccine that was our miracle cure has created this new, really complicated challenge. The fight against polio isn't over. It's just entered its most complex and critical phase. So get this. Back in 2022, something pretty alarming happened. The polio virus, a ghost from the past, actually showed up in the wastewater of major cities like New York, London, and Israel. And then, an unvaccinated young adult in New York was paralyzed by the disease. This wasn't some historical footnote. It was a modern-day warning shot that polio is still a global risk. To really understand how we got here, we need to go back to the beginning. Okay, so before the vaccine, the word polio, man, it struck absolute terror into the hearts of parents everywhere. It was like a summertime plague, totally unpredictable and just devastating. So what is it exactly? Well, poliomyelitis is the super contagious virus. It spreads really easily, especially in places that have poor sanitation. And its main target? Kids under 5. The really tricky part is, a lot of people who get infected don't even show symptoms, but the potential consequences are catastrophic. And the odds were just terrifying. Think about this. For every 200 children infected with the polio virus, one would suffer irreversible paralysis. 1 in 200. Imagine those odds during a full-blown epidemic. A child could go from having a mild fever to being permanently unable to walk, all within a matter of days. That was the reality. And we are not talking about a few isolated cases here and there. No, we're talking about 500,000 people, mostly children, being killed or paralyzed every single year. This was a massive global crisis, and it demanded one of science's greatest ever triumphs. This crisis is what sparked the heroic part of the story, right? The moment humanity really thought back with science, and for a while there, it seriously looked like we had won. This whole effort, it took decades. It kicked off with Jonas Salk's injectable vaccine in 1955, followed by Albert Sabin's oral vaccine, which was a huge deal. Then, in 1988, the world came together to form the Global Polio Eradication Initiative, with one single massive goal: wipe this disease off the face of the earth. And the progress was just incredible. By 2019, 2 of the 3 wild poliovirus types were declared totally, completely eradicated. Okay, look at these numbers. When the GPI started its work back in '88, there were over 350,000 cases of wild polio a year. Fast forward to 2023, and there were just 12. 12! From 350,000 down to 12. I mean, that is an absolutely staggering achievement. Yeah, that's a reduction of more than 99.9%. Truly one of the greatest public health victories in all of history. But that final tiny little fraction of a percent, that is where our story gets really complicated. And this is where the whole plot just twists, because the very tool that brought us this incredible success, the oral vaccine, also created this new, totally unexpected challenge. Okay, so there are 2 main kinds of polio vaccine. You've got the inactivated vaccine, the IPV. That's a shot, and it uses a killed virus. It's fantastic at stopping the person who gets it from getting paralyzed. But then you have the oral vaccine, the OPV. This one uses a live but weakened virus. You just take it as drops, it's cheap, easy, and creates powerful immunity in your gut that actually stops the virus from spreading between people. That's why it was the perfect tool for wiping it out globally. But that live weakened virus, that's the key to the problem we're facing today. So now we've kind of got 2 villains in our story. You have the classic wild poliovirus, the one we've nearly beaten for good, but then there's this new version, circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus, or CVDPV. This isn't the wild virus. It's basically a descendant of that weakened virus from the oral vaccine that has, over time, mutated and regained its strength. So how does this even happen? Well, it's a rare sequence of events, but it's critical to understand. Step 1, a child gets the oral vaccine. Step 2, the weakened virus does its job in their gut and then gets shed in their stool. That's totally normal. But, and this is the big but, if this happens in a community where almost nobody is vaccinated, that weakened virus suddenly has an opportunity. It can start spreading from one unvaccinated person to the next. And as it circulates for a long time, maybe a year or more, it can pick up enough mutations to become dangerous again, capable of causing paralysis, just like the wild virus. And this right here is the paradox we are facing today. The wild virus is practically gone, but these vaccine-derived versions, they are now causing the majority of polio paralysis cases around the globe. The cure, in these very specific situations where immunity is low, has become a source of the disease. But this whole paradox isn't the only problem. Getting rid of that last tiny 0.1% of polio is incredibly difficult for a bunch of other reasons. You see, one of polio's biggest advantages is that it's stealthy. For every one person you see who is tragically paralyzed, there could be hundreds, maybe even thousands of other people infected who show no symptoms at all. They feel totally fine, but they're silently spreading the virus. And that makes it unbelievably hard to track until it's way too late.
And then you've got all the human challenges. You have vaccinators who have to navigate active war zones just to reach kids. They have to try and track down nomadic communities that are constantly on the move. They're battling the very conditions where the virus thrives, poor sanitation. And here's the crazy part. As the disease gets rarer, funding and political attention start to fade. People move on to the next crisis. Every single one of these hurdles is just massive.
So, okay, with all of these massive challenges, how do we actually win? How do we finally cross that finish line? Well, there is a clear strategy in place. The Global Polio Eradication Initiative's current game plan has two crystal clear goals. Goal number 1, hunt down and stop every last chain of the original wild polio virus. Goal number 2, aggressively shut down these vaccine-derived outbreaks and stop new ones from ever starting. It's basically a war on two fronts. And the tactics for this two-front war? They have to be relentless. It means keeping up a constant shield of high vaccination rates everywhere. It means treating every single case of sudden paralysis in a child as a potential polio emergency until you can prove it's not. It means testing sewage, literally, to find the virus hiding in a community before it paralyzes anyone. And crucially, it also means using smarter tools, like a new oral vaccine that's been engineered to be way more stable and much less likely to mutate back into a dangerous form. So, we're left with this question. After all these decades of work, after this unimaginable progress, we are right on the verge of wiping out a human disease for only the second time in history. But this last step, it's the hardest. It's going to take global cooperation, sustained funding, and an unwavering focus to close this final, frustratingly complex gap. The fight isn't over, but that finish line, it's in sight. The real question is, can we get there?